Hello, welcome back to The Reading Mama. I am stuck in the car waiting for someone, so I thought I'd do a quick video for this week of 5 of my favorite Christian heroes from the 20th century biographies. Okay, that's a mouthful. I need to work on that title. But my 5 favorite biographies about Christians in the 20th century and the things they overcome include heroes like Darlene Deibler Rose, Corrie ten Boom, Richard Wurmbrand, Elizabeth Elliot, and the Saint family. And also, there's one more, and I'm thinking of, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So, let's start it off with Evidence Not Seen by Darlene Deibler Rose. I absolutely love this book. It's one I want to read more often, maybe every year even, because it is just so powerful. Her testimony is very humble, but it is also just encouraging, and it just puts you on fire for the Lord. So if you don't know, Darlene Deibler Rose was Darlene, I forget her maiden name, but she was married to somebody Deibler. I can't remember her husband's name either, but they served in the Pacific arena during World War II and prior to that, and they ended up becoming prisoners in a Japanese internment camp. So the story talks about their ministry beforehand and then her time in a prisoner of war camp, and I'm not going to tell the end, but if you can tell by her name, she did remarry at some point. So it doesn't talk about much after she got back from the war, but her testimony of what she endured beforehand and during her imprisonment is just so encouraging. It is a little bit graphic in some areas, not sexual graphic or anything like that, but just like medically graphic. Like there's one scene about jungle rot that really stuck with me. And so I highly recommend Evidence Not Seen by Darlene Deibler Rose. And then next, I also recommend Through the Gates of Splendor by Elizabeth Elliot, which tells the story of Elizabeth and her husband in the jungles of South America, along with the Saints, Flemings, and I cannot think of the other one. There are 4 missionaries who are serving the indigenous people in South America, and the husbands they were martyred. I'm not going to go into the details here, but they were witnessing to a violent tribe known as the Aucas, who had never heard of the gospel, and the Lord just laid on their heart to witness to them, and they suffered death at their hands. But later on, Elizabeth and her Rachel Saint went back, and so they also went back and served the Aucas. And today the Auca are people who know the Lord, who are flourishing and on fire for the Lord. But it is just an amazing testimony of what they endured, what things went into the ministry in South America, and then what they endured during and after the death of their husbands. And next up, we'll just stick with the women. Let's go with The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. Really, you could pick up any book by Corrie ten Boom and it's going to be a winner. But The Hiding Place is a great intro. If you do not know, Corrie ten Boom is a Dutch woman whose family, they hid Jewish people during World War II, but they did so much more to serve the Jewish community. They were Christian, not Jews, and they did much to serve the community beforehand, working with even handicapped and impoverished people. And during World War II, they hid them. They ended up being arrested, but they saved the Jewish people who were hiding, were never discovered, and were able to get to freedom and safety. And so I highly recommend The Hiding Place. The old movie is not great quality, but it does tell the story. But I do recommend you read the book. My daughter will be reading all 3 of those books next year because they are just so empowering. What is best about Elizabeth Elliot, Corrie ten Boom, and Darlene Deibler Rose is their humility in their testimony for God. Like, you can just see so many miracles through all of their stories, and it is just it is a pure, beautiful thing that'll just leave you on fire for the Lord. My last 2 are a little bit more, you might want to censor if you're reading it with kids, because they get a little more graphic and a little more violent. So first up is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And I will put a picture here. I can't think of it. It is a beefy book. Okay. The audiobook version is great. Sorry, my hand is getting tired. And it is wonderful. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer is just an interesting character. If you don't know, he is someone who he was a spy. He's a Christian man who also was a spy and working to help take down Hitler. And some people, he has an interesting story. He was later imprisoned, but he also came to America and learned some things about the civil rights movement and things like that. And he just, I don't know, he's he's got an interesting story and a very interesting testimony. He also was murdered. And yeah, so I don't know what else to say about that, but I highly recommend Dietrich Bonhoeffer. It is a beefy book. You could read it in sections. He just has so much that goodness in this book that just tells about all the different aspects of his walk with the Lord and how he felt empowered by scriptures to do very different things and make an impact in his community. So I highly recommend that. And last but not least is Torture for Christ by Richard Wurmbrand. And the only reason it is last is because it is violent and graphic. If you don't know, Richard Wurmbrand is a Jewish man who became saved. He somehow managed to survive the Nazism of World War II torn Europe in Romania. And then he later got saved, he and his wife Sabina, and they became Christians, and then they were persecuted by the Russians. And if you don't know, communist regime is incredibly violent. Look into some Romanian history if you are interested. Ruta Sepetys has a good book that is historical fiction if you want an intro that's a little more gentle into the violence, I guess. But it was brutal in Romania and in Soviet controlled areas. And so Richard Wurmbrand, it was a Lutheran pastor, much like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and he stood for the case of Christ, and he was not going to bend on that. And he tells the story over and over, talking about the horrible things that happened to him in imprisonment, how he disappeared, his family didn't know if he was alive or dead, how they were punished, all these different things. And yet the entire time he's telling you over and over two things. One, I don't want to tell all these horrible things, but it helps other people. And then the other thing that he tells them is that hate communism, but don't hate the person. Hate the violent, but don't hate the people. And I just love his testimony. It is wonderful. I think everyone should read it at some point in their life, but it is rather graphic because people were asking to know how he was treated. So take that in mind if you read it. But yes, those are 5 Christian heroes that I recommend that people read. I think high schoolers should read all 5 of those books, among others, but they are great 20th century Christian heroes. The other ones that I'm not going to really mention, but YWAM has some amazing books for younger readers that are less graphic about all of these people if you're wanting something a little more gentle to start with. But yes, they are 5 Christian heroes who have really impacted my life and my walk with the Lord. So I encourage you to check those out. Thank you so much for watching and have a blessed day.